My phone illuminated the dark passenger seat of my sedan at 24 minutes past midnight, vibrating with a frantic energy that felt entirely out of place in the freezing air. When the name of my husband flashed on the screen, a heavy weight settled deep inside my chest. He sounded completely unraveled, asking me why my face was currently broadcasting on every major television network across the state. Glancing across the snowy parking lot toward a 24-hour diner, I watched several customers staring intently at a wall-mounted television screen. On the screen, a woman wearing a heavy crimson winter coat was actively pulling a trapped child from a vehicle sinking in frozen water. Even before the camera zoomed in on her face, I recognized the wool scarf around her neck and realized I was looking at myself. Only 3 days before this chaotic night, our marriage of 22 years still appeared perfectly intact to the outside world. My husband, Garrett, and I had built a quiet life together, but underneath the surface, our connection had slowly evaporated into polite silence. We had reached a point where we finished the grocery listings of each other, but rarely shared our actual thoughts anymore. I had stepped away from my career as an accountant 7 years ago to provide full-time care for my ailing mother. After she passed away, I found myself adrift in a very quiet house while Garrett climbed the corporate ladder as a regional operations director. His expanding world of business trips and high-stakes dinners only made my daily isolation feel much more profound. The fracture became undeniable when Garrett called me, while I was happily wrapping holiday gifts in our dining room. He explained that his powerful superior, Sterling Vance, was visiting the city for Christmas Eve with his wife Eleanor. Instead of asking me to prepare her a nice dinner, Garrett took a deep breath and suggested that it would be better if I was not present. His words cut through me as he explained that he did not want any potential awkwardness to ruin a critical business opportunity. He offered to purchase a luxury hotel room for me, essentially banishing his own wife from her home during the holidays. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase and walked out into the cold, taking only the red scarf he gave me years ago. My temporary refuge was a desolate motel tucked behind a highway intersection, smelling heavily of chemical bleach and old carpet. I spent the afternoon wandering through local shopping plazas just to escape the deafening quiet of my room, watching happy families prepare for their celebrations. Garrett sent a brief text message hoping that I was settled, a polite lie that I answered with 2 hollow words. By 7 in the evening, the heavy silence drove me back to our neighborhood, just to drop off the presents I bought. Parking down the street, I watched through the window as Garrett laughed with Sterling Vance, while Eleanor sat comfortably on my living room sofa. The warmth of the scene inside was a sharp contrast to the freezing winter air that surrounded my car. After leaving the gift bag quietly on the front porch, I drove away with a crushing sense of displacement. My phone soon buzzed with an emergency notification from a local volunteer shelter that desperately needed assistance with a sudden influx of families. Eager to feel useful instead of discarded, I responded immediately and spent the next several hours helping people who had nowhere else to go. I left the shelter around 11 in the evening as the winter storm intensified, coating the highway in slick ice. Just north of the river bridge, my headlights illuminated a terrifying scene where an SUV had crashed through the metal guardrail. The vehicle was tilting precariously down the steep bank, its heavy front end already sinking into the black and freezing water below. Sprinting toward the edge, I saw the frantic hands of young children pressing desperately against the glass of the rear window. A young man stopped his truck behind me and rushed over with a heavy tire iron, using it to shatter the glass. Cold river water rushed into the cabin instantly, and the screams of the terrified family pushed me to act without a single hesitation. I crawled halfway through the shattered opening, ignored the biting cold of the rising water, and grabbed the shivering little boy first. After passing him to safety, I struggled with the jammed seatbelt of his sister, releasing her just before the vehicle shifted. Finally, I helped the terrified mother escape the sinking cabin, dragging her onto the snowy bank seconds before the vehicle disappeared completely. Emergency vehicles arrived with flashing lights, and a local news reporter approached me while a paramedic treated a deep cut on my hand. I gave a brief, humble interview, explaining that I only did what any decent person would do under those circumstances. I did not realize that this short clip would immediately broadcast my identity to everyone, including my husband and his prestigious guests. Back in the motel room, my phone rang repeatedly until I finally answered the call from Garrett that initiated this night. He was whispering in absolute shock, explaining that Sterling had watched the broadcast and suddenly realized that his employee had locked his heroic wife out. Garrett pleaded with me not to tell the public the truth about why I was sleeping in a cheap motel. The guests had already departed in disappointment, leaving Garrett alone to face the devastating social fallout of his selfish actions. He begged to come pick me up, claiming he made a massive mistake, but I told him that he had actually made a conscious choice. I hung up the phone and realized that our long marriage was officially over, ending not with a fight but with clarity. The next day, I agreed to meet the reporter, Clara Higgins, at a quiet park to share the honest reality of my situation. I explained that I was supposed to be home, but unexpected circumstances had forced me to seek shelter elsewhere. When her powerful article was published, she beautifully highlighted the reality of holiday loneliness without naming Garrett or exposing our private pain directly. A few days later, I returned to the empty house to retrieve my remaining possessions and officially leave my keys on the table. Garrett watched me pack in silence, finally understanding the true cost of his shallow ambition. I moved into a bright new apartment, returned to the workforce, and began building a genuine life defined by my own choices and worth. Saving that family in the freezing river was an act of survival. But the real rescue occurred when I chose to walk away from a hollow marriage. Sometimes we must lose the life we planned to discover the strength we always possessed. If this emotional journey touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel for more powerful, true stories of resilience and hope.